Lord, after a short refreshment, we come before you to continue our study. We pray that you also guide and direct us as we come together this second hour. We pray this in Jesus' name. Amen. All right. So in our first study, we tried to answer, which we didn't yet, but we tried to answer the question about the definitions. So how did the movement come up with the definitions of the woman, the beast, and the head? Can you explain those definitions, all three, a little better? So I didn't give the definitions, but I hope I've laid a foundation to come to those definitions just based on Revelation 17 itself. We looked at it first. We looked at Revelation 17 just globally, that there's different symbols, and you can look at it from a panoramic view, and some of them are dispensational view. And Revelation 17, the beast-woman relationship is panoramic view. But if you go into the dispensational view of Revelation 17, you also see beast. And that makes it difficult to conceptualize, perhaps, because at some point the beast is dead. There is no beast-woman relationship. Although Revelation 17 and other verses says there's a woman and a beast relationship all the time. But at the same time, we see also that in the sixth kingdom, it's not there. And that this is the dynamic. You have panoramic view and dispensational view. That explains it. Just as we can see that, for example, in Daniel 2. So then we look at where is the power in Revelation 17, because we understand that there is a theme in Revelation 17. There's a struggle for power. There's a woman that wants to ride a beast. We went to the natural and said, like, why do human beings ride horses, for example, or ride elephants in other countries? Why do they do that? Because those animals, those beasts, they have a certain power. They have something that we as human beings want, but we don't have it naturally. So, for example, horse is fast, it has strength. An elephant is much power and strength, and we can use those animals, those beasts, because they have a certain power that human beings don't have. So that's the natural. So go back to the spiritual, to Revelation 17, and say we see a woman riding a beast. This woman wants to ride a beast because the beast has a certain power. So then we went to verses 10, 11, also verse 8 was a good addition, where we see the difference, that there is a difference between heads and beasts, especially in the sixth kingdom. You suddenly see that there is a head, but there is no beast. And the problem is, or no, not the problem is, we know there are 7 heads, 7 of those heads. And Revelation teaches that there are kings, there are kingdoms. When we look at the sixth kingdom specifically, we see that there is no beast and woman relationship, but there is a head. And we understand that the sixth kingdom is a good kingdom. We understand that from other chapters in Revelation 17 as well. It's a good kingdom. So if the sixth kingdom is a good kingdom, and it only has a head to symbolize it, that makes the head a good thing. But if the head is a good thing, and we know that all those kingdoms actually have a head, then all those kingdoms have a good head. So kingdom 1, 2 until 7 have a head which is good. So we went into what is this head then specifically, and we discussed that we know that it is a king or a kingdom, and we know that the purpose of a kingdom is actually to do good. A king is there to protect and serve the people, to organize. It's an institution that has a good purpose. The problem is that the throne that we started talking about is misused by individuals, by entities. So and then we looked at the difference between, okay, so if all those kingdoms have thrones, which are there to protect and serve the people, what's the difference between why is the beast woman relationship not in the sixth kingdom? There is something with this sixth king or this sixth kingdom or this sixth throne that the woman is not interested in. So, and that's because this, where was it? Oh, here. I suggested that that's because this sixth kingdom or the throne of the sixth kingdom is restrained. So now the the pioneers of the United States, the Pilgrim Fathers who set up the United States, the organization, the Constitution, they built in some checks and balances that the President of the United States, this throne that the President receives, is not unlimited. So in 1798, oh no, yeah. Oh. So in 1798, we see the birth of the sixth kingdom. And the thing that makes the sixth kingdom different from the previous ones is that it created a form of government that made it impossible for a bad person. No, let me say it this way. It created a form of government. It created an institution, the throne, that could not be misused against its own people. That makes sense. And that's something the woman is not interested in because she wants to have unrestrained power. So the sixth kingdom is there. It has a restrained throne. So this is what marks the beginning of the sixth kingdom. So if we understand the beginning of the sixth kingdom, if this is what it is, then we also know what it is that ends the sixth kingdom, right? This is the beginning, or the alpha, and now we're here at the end. So what marks the end of the sixth kingdom? We should go to the beginning of the, yeah. So if restrained power marks the beginning of the sixth kingdom and it makes the sixth kingdom unique, then the end of the sixth kingdom marks that you have an unrestrained throne. So something happens with the throne. Something happens with the power of the throne that makes the sixth kingdom comes to its end. So there is nothing happening with no, let me leave it here for now. So I want to go back because I still haven't answered the question about the definitions, and I think we have enough information. We gathered enough information from Revelation 17 to understand more about those different symbols. So if we go to If we go to the woman first. So what do we learn about the woman so far? We know Revelation 17 is a chapter that's about power struggle. And the woman wants to have power. She has something, whatever it is, she has something that she wants to share, or wants to give, or wants to force upon others. So she has something, but the only thing that she doesn't have is power. So she has something and she wants to force that upon other people or give it to other people or share it, but she can't. She can't give it because she doesn't have the ability by itself naturally. Just like riding a horse, you you only have your legs, and I want to travel whatever 200 kilometers, then that's quite a bit just by legs. But if you have a horse, it just gives you the ability to do something that you want. So the woman has um,
Entity with ideology.
yes. So a woman is an entity. And also when we go and look back to those other kingdoms, not just the sixth and the seventh, but the first five, and especially the fifth, I think is the one that you see it the clearest. It's an entity with in I guess in the fifth kingdom, it is an entity with religious ideas. But we know that we are living in a time period where religious ideas are not so much important anymore. It's just ideas. So in the past, we would say the woman is the church because the church is an entity with ideas, an entity with ideology, but it's religious ideology. But as we understand that religion is becoming less an issue in at the end of the world, we take the religious out just to create a definition that works for all dispensation. So, so we said church in the past. The woman is the church, which is good, but it's a bad definition for panoramic view because it's not church all the time. Or no, I'm not sure if I can use panoramic in this way, but it's a bad. No, let me say it this way: it's a bad definition that works for all dispensations, for dispensational view actually. So because there are dispensations where the woman is the church. That's correct. But it's not always the church. So you cannot say woman is church as being a definition that works for all. So we're looking for a definition that works for all dispensations. So church is an entity with an ideology. The problem is that the church is an entity with a religious ideology. And we know that it's not always religious, especially in the time period we're in right now. So an entity with an ideology. And I add to that that lacks power. So this woman needs something. It has an ideology. It wants to share it with others, but it doesn't have the power to do it. So it needs power. I'll start with the head. So the head is a king, it says, or a kingdom. But a head is good. That's also what we learned from Revelation 17. So it's something. I'll call it an institution here because it has to do with kingdoms. It is something about a king or a kingdom that is actually good. So we did a little exercise in the first hour. We said like, okay, what do you need? What is a kingdom actually? What is a kingdom? What does a kingdom consist of? And we said, well, it's people, it's organization, it's geographical area. And when we talk about organization, we include law, we include government, everything that is dealing with governance, so to speak. And and I said, if you boil that down, boil that down into one thing, what would that look like? And I said, I suggest that's a throne. So the throne is kind of like the ultimate institution that includes everything. It includes law, it includes organization, it includes serving and protecting people. Throne is that institution. So a head is a king or a kingdom, or I would say it's an institution of the throne, which is good. It is a good institution. It's there to protect the people. So it is an institution, a good institution in an institution with power. And we actually added a political institution. So it's not some random institution, it's political. A political institution, but this one has power. And now the beast. So the beast is a symbol that you only see in combination with the woman. It's not there separately. So you either have a head without a beast and a woman, or you have all three of them. So a beast, you cannot disconnect it from the woman. So the beast is there. It's the combination of those two. It's only when the woman has took control over this political institution. So it's a political institution with power, and now the woman rides it. That has adopted, we said, adopted the ideology of the woman. Because beast and woman are inseparable. In Revelation 17, you see them. If you see them, they're always together. And those definitions are tripping up people sometimes because we say now the head and the beast are different from each other. And I've tried to explain that by all the way here at the beginning with the dispensational and the panoramic. That in the panoramic, a beast is something that doesn't change. There's a beast from the beginning all the way to the end, just as a woman. So there's a beast and a woman all the time. But if you go to the dispensations, you see it's a little bit more complicated. There's not always a beast and there's not always a woman. And I think then you can come to those definitions where an entity, where a woman is an entity with an ideology, so it has something in mind, but it can't do it themselves. It lacks the power to do it. It needs a political institution that has the power. And as soon as it uses that power, it has control over that power. It turns into a beast. And that's why there is no beast in the sixth kingdom, because the woman doesn't have control over the throne, over the political institution that has the power. So we already started looking at the Sixth Kingdom because that is one of the questions I received as well. And I think the foundation that I laid a little bit here is answering several questions that I received, because I received questions about how did you come to the definitions. I'm not sure if I answered that question properly, good enough. But the other questions is can you explain the Sixth Kingdom and the Seventh Kingdom, for example? And I think I already started there doing that, because the Sixth Kingdom is unique because of its throne. It has a restrained throne. And if we understand the beginning of that throne, or sorry, at the beginning of that kingdom, the Sixth Kingdom, we also know when that kingdom comes to its end. Something must happen to that throne. It becomes a throne that is unrestrained. So what we see is there is a period here. This is just a randomly. This is not necessarily. I guess this is a waymark. You can call this 1989, or yeah, let's call it 1989. Where we can see that where we can see that the power that the president gets increases. It starts in the time period of Reagan, but especially I think you can really you can really see it in shortly after 9/11, where the president is able to receives power by Congress, so it's purposely done, and it's not like there's no evil intent. There's just a crisis in the United States. There's several crises happening, and Congress and the government allows the president to have more power, because they think if we give more power to the president is better able to protect and serve the people. So the intentions are good, and they give slowly, step by step, more power to that throne, to that seat. And then it comes to a point that when you look back to 1798, when you look back to 1798, you suddenly realize this throne is not the same anymore. So I think the time period of Reagan has been mentioned. Bush with 9/11 has mentioned. Then we have COVID. And I think even the Ukraine war. Were all little crises that the US government used to give more power to the presidency. And they did it for good reasons, or good intentions. And as long as you have a good king sitting on that throne, there's no problem. It The problem is, though, that this seat suddenly changes from a throne that is restrained to a throne that is unrestrained. And suddenly there comes a point where the woman realizes, hey, this is an interesting throne now. So I'm going to zoom in a little bit. So one of the questions I had is, what is the Sixth Kingdom? How it operates? What does it look like? And what makes it a good kingdom? maybe I didn't go into much detail, but I think I touched on it and explained it, that the sixth kingdom is unique because of its throne. The throne is restrained, and therefore the woman does not even have interest in it. And the woman starts to be interested in it as soon as this is as soon as this throne is not uh, or is not restrained anymore. So if I can put it this way, so you have six restrained power, sixth kingdom. The seventh kingdom is a kingdom that is illustrated in the as the beast comes alive again, comes back. So this woman-beast relationship comes back. So I'm saying the seventh kingdom um, is illustrated as an unrestrained throne. So so the change from the sixth to the seventh kingdom doesn't have to do with, for example, the Sunday law. Like something happens, uh, whatever the Sunday law, whatever that is, even if you talk about it in a literal way, like a literal Sunday law, it's not like this event, this sin that is described in the Bible or that we call Sunday law, this sin of Babylon is not a sin that the sixth kingdom does. The sixth kingdom doesn't sin even, or not in that way. I mean, it makes mistakes because it does something it shouldn't do, though. But that's not the sin that we describe as the sins of Babylon, or that we describe as the Sunday law sin. The Sunday law sin is something that the seventh kingdom does. The sixth kingdom, the problem with the sixth kingdom is that it forgets that it shouldn't give unrestrained power to the seed. So at some point here, at this point, we see something happens gradually. It's a process to that seed that it no longer looks the same anymore. And it comes to a point where the woman starts to be interested in that seed again. That doesn't make the seventh kingdom a bad kingdom, because now it has unrestrained power. It has a seed with unrestrained power, but that seat is still there to do good. So it's a good head. And as long as you have a good president sitting on that head, sorry, sitting on that throne, um, there's nothing, there's no problem. But the woman knows when she gets access um, to that throne, to that power, she can misuse that power. So that's the problem with the unrestrained power. So now the woman starts to be interested. She starts to look. And says like, hey, this throne, I like this one. I want to have access to this throne. And as soon as she has access to that throne, then um, we can see the beast again. We can see um, we can see the problem with. No, let me say do it. Now we can see the sin is taking place. Now we can see, we didn't talk about fornication and adultery in this presentation, but this is where the adultery and fornication is going to take place. This is the sin that we call the Sunday law sin. It's taking place here. But that can only take place, that sin can only take place when the sixth kingdom comes to its end. Then the seventh kingdom starts, and only then we can start, or the woman can start being interested in that power. So this point here is not the Sunday law. It's before the Sunday law. The Sunday law is here. This is Sunday law. This is where the woman starts to ride the throne, so to speak. And in this time period, she shows interest. So there's other presentations around where I think even Elder Parminder did it, I'm not sure, where this is being described, this process of how the woman takes initiative to get access to this. So you have if I do it the same line here, the woman, she is not interested. So this is the sixth kingdom. There's no interest in that seed, in the power. Then at some point, she realizes, hey, this throne she's not interested in. But this same throne now got changed, got another color. And now she thinks like, oh, I'm interested in this throne. I'm going to, this is the seventh kingdom. This is the seventh kingdom. And now she says like, hey, but this throne, I'm interested in this throne. I'm going to show my affection, so to speak. So if we do talk about in the context of adultery and fornication, this relationship between the woman and the beast, then here there is this point where the woman starts to be interested in, let's say, the man. So the prostitute gets interested in the king, the man in this parable. But the man doesn't realize that. The woman is just interested and starts to prepare herself to get closer. But the man has no idea. And then it comes to a point where let me call it interaction. So there comes a point when there is suddenly interaction. So suddenly the man realizes that there is a prostitute that is interested in him. And the problem is that this throne, or this man, this throne is unrestrained. It is not able, do I say that correctly? No, maybe I shouldn't. So there is an interaction, sorry. So we come to a point where in this parable of the prostitute and the man, this man starts to notice that this prostitute is interested in him. And he is flattered. And he doesn't look away. He actually looks and thinks it's interesting. So suddenly there is an interaction. There is an interaction between the two, and they don't look away. So I'm saying this is Sunday law. There's a point where they look to each other and say, that's interesting. We might like each other. That's the only thing. And then time continues. Like in real life, you would say, oh, there's a romance or a courtship. So something like that. There's like this time period where they get to know each other better and they prepare each other for getting to know each other, etc. So there comes a point in time where there is the real act of adultery, where they jump in bed. This is where the woman and the man come together in the physical act of adultery. This is where the woman starts to ride the beast, control the beast. So I said this is Sunday law. Let me remove that and say this is 18th of July, 2024. And I'm saying this is, what is it? 21st of January, 2025. But the beginning of the seventh kingdom, we mark here. Before Sunday law, the end of the sixth kingdom, and the beginning of the seventh. And the only thing that marks that transition is the throne. And I think at the moment we mark this as 2021. And as the point where the bad woman starts to become interested in the throne that has changed over time. So I'm not sure if this helps. I'm sure it may help a little bit, but it produces extra questions as well. That's always with an explanation. You have answers, and for that you receive 3 more questions. But this is, in a nutshell, how I would explain the dynamic of the sixth and the seventh kingdom. So what is the sixth kingdom? The sixth kingdom is a good power. It has a restrained throne. It never fornicates with the woman. The sixth kingdom doesn't fornicate with the woman. It only changes the throne to a certain point where it's not similar to the beginning anymore. And that's the transition point to the seventh kingdom, because now it has unrestrained power. The seventh kingdom starts good. It only has a throne that is unrestrained, but in 2021, you have Joe Biden sitting on that throne. He has unrestrained power, and I would say he uses it in a good way to serve the people. But then, after some time in 2024, the bad woman, the entity with an ideology that lacks power, wants to have access to a throne with unrestrained power. And in 2021, this woman starts to become interested and starts to prepare. And it's July 18 where officially it interacts with the throne. Because before July 18, Donald Trump, because we're talking about Donald Trump here, before July 18, Donald Trump for the throne was a nobody. He wasn't an official candidate. In July 18, he becomes an official candidate for this throne. So in July 18, he starts to interact with this throne, with with the king. No, with the throne, sorry. Or in the parable with the man. So there becomes there starts an interaction. And the throne, the characteristics, the DNA of the throne, it's in the DNA of the throne that to embrace every king that's or everyone that's going to sit on that throne is going to embrace it. Whatever the ideology of that woman is going to embrace it. That's in the DNA of that throne. That's the only problem is that this throne has unrestrained power now. So a bad woman can now misuse this throne to serve itself and not to serve and protect the people. So that's what we've been seeing since 2021. July 18 marks the point where adultery takes place in the mind spiritually. So now there's two entities that look each other in the eye and think, interesting, and not look away. So there is this thing, they are interested in each other. And then there is this time period where they come closer together, and then on January 21st, 2025, inauguration, the woman rides the beast. This is where the real adultery, so to speak, takes place. So by explaining this, I hope at least I have answered some of the questions regarding the sixth and the seventh kingdom and the definitions of the different symbols. There was another question about when does the seventh kingdom come into power? Is that in 2024 or in 1989? I think it's neither of them. Based on this picture that I have here, I'm suggesting it's 2021 where the seventh kingdom starts to become in power. But it starts good, and maybe add that to this as well, to this picture. So the sixth kingdom is a good kingdom all the time, from the beginning all the way to the end. It's a good kingdom. The seventh kingdom starts good as well. It's good. It doesn't sin. Just as the sixth kingdom doesn't sin. There's no so this good here in this drawing, this good means there's no fornication taking place with the woman, with the prostitute. So there's no fornication. So it's a good kingdom. It doesn't the prostitute doesn't have control over the throne. So that makes it a good kingdom. And then only here makes it bad. So 2024, so the questioner asks, is the seventh kingdom starting in 2024? The fornication starts in 2024. But that's here. That's here. This is the transition from going from no fornication to fornication. So that's 2024. But the seventh kingdom starts when the throne changes. And the throne changes here at this point. And then you have still some period in the seventh kingdom that is where it is good. It is an unrestrained throne, but as long as you have a good king, a good woman riding it, there's no issue. There's no sin taking place. There's no fornication taking place. The fornication starts here. And this is where 2024, the transition is. So when does the seventh kingdom come into power? I would say the beginning you mark here. The fornication, we mark here. So I hope that answers some of it. I'm sure there's new questions rising. So are there any? I think I would be good to leave it here. Are there any thoughts or questions that you want me to address? I know there were other questions to, but are there any questions that we that you want me to address?
George, your questions. George, are your questions answered?
That was you didn't ask me, right?
No, I was asking George, one of those questioners.
Yeah. Okay.
I believe that most of the questions were answered.
Yeah, I think so too. Are there any new questions? Do I need to clarify something? Or is there something you don't understand from what I explained today that needs some clarification?
Arjun,
Oh, yeah.
Arjun, just a question. Like the structure here, the structure in front of you there.
Yes.
It's about the woman there, and can we also tag that the woman there is also equivalent to King of the North?
Oh, yeah. Good point. Yes. Yes. I believe the King of the North is the woman. So if we go to Daniel 11, verse 40, we have two entities. We have the King of the North, and we have the King of the South. Right? So in 1798, that's the papacy. And France. Right? So France pushes against the papacy. And then in 1989, we see the papacy pushing against the USSR. So if we look at Daniel 11, verse 40, I would say that if we look to so here the King of the North is the papacy, and here as well. And we also know that the papacy is the woman. In Revelation 17, the woman that is riding the beast in the fifth kingdom is the papacy. It's the papacy that rules over the kings of Europe. Or here you could say it was France. France was a representative of the kings of Europe, and the kings of Europe were done with the rulership of the papacy, so they killed her, so to speak, or end of relationship. The woman was not allowed to ride the throne anymore of the kings of Europe. So this woman of Revelation 17 and Daniel 11 is called the King of the North. So yeah, that's my short answer to your question, or my short explanation to say the woman of Revelation 17 is the King of the North.
Thank you, Arjun. I get it.
I have a
to add.
question.
Okay, yep.
Is king of the north via papacy, is it the church?
Yeah, papacy is a church, but it is an entity with an ideology.
Yeah.
I have to add, let me just to make sure that there's no confusion about this. This is 1798. This is 1989. But we're living in I'll call it today. We're living in a different situation now. So the papacy is not the king of the north anymore. The papacy is after 1989. The papacy basically lost its rulership, and it tried to right several thrones in history. Also after 1798, we know the First World War, Second World War. It tried to stay. The problem is it tried to stay in Europe. So in 1989, it's basically the last act of the papacy in a prophetic way, and after that, it just disappears from the prophetic scene, because after 1989 we see the rise of the United States as the king of the north, basically, or the United States in its general sense. Today we say the king of the north is another entity with an ideology, which is Trump. It's an entity with an ideology, and it tries to and it tries to ride the throne, to have access to power. It wants to have the power. And before, the woman wanted to have power in Europe, the kings of Europe, or Germany, Germany in the First and Second World War. Now it wants to have power in the New World, in the USA. So the king of the North, the king of the North, Trump, wants to ride the throne. He is the woman riding the throne. Yeah. So I just wanted to make clear that the papacy is not around in prophecy anymore. There's this end here for the papacy.
Thank you.
Arjan, I do have a question.
Yes.
So, for that king of the north, as you just mentioned, Trump, could it also be MAGA, or is just Trump?
Yeah. So I think the problem with MAGA is that it's very scattered as well. It's not a unified body of people with an ideology. Within MAGA, you have so many different ideologies. Even MAGA is very disappointed in what Trump is doing, or MAGA is really upset about the fact that Trump is blocking the Epstein files, for example, or what Trump is doing in Venezuela and Iran at the moment, doing all because Trump, he said America first, make America great again. We're not going to be bothered with those other countries. But suddenly now he is in war with Iran. He's going into Venezuela. Soon he's probably going into Cuba. He is doing a lot of international stuff with his wars. And people were sick of wars. They were sick of Iraq war, the Afghanistan war, and now he's doing other stuff. So there's many people angry within the MAGA movement that disagree with Trump. Others are happy, others are not. So the MAGA movement isn't so much it's not unified in its ideology. It's very scattered. I mean, what's his name? Vance, Vice President Vance is a MAGA person, but he doesn't agree with the Iran invasion, the Iran war. He is really, I mean, he doesn't say it because he has to be in line with Trump, but he was really, he is and was really against, what's the word? He is an, I forgot the word, but he doesn't want he doesn't want to go into wars, bring democracy to other nations, as all the presidents did before. I forgot the word, I'm sorry. But so MAGA isn't so united. And Trump is the only. So, of course, Trump is influenced by different people around him, but he is the one deciding. He's hitting the buttons. He is doing what he wants to do. Of course, he gets information from people and he hears different, but he has his ideology and he has his own ideas, and he only allows people with information to him that agree with him, that are in line with his ideology and thoughts. And some people in the MAGA movement just don't agree or are not in line with the ideology of Trump. So in the end, it's really Trump that is in control, not the MAGA movement. The MAGA movement is not in control. It's Trump that is in control. It's riding the beast. Yeah, you're welcome.
Arijan, I have a
Anybody
question.
else? Oh yeah, sure. Yeah.
It's just know that the mystery in those verses above. If you scroll to the top again, and if you just check out Revelation 17 verses 8, verse 10 and 11, I think. Yeah, 8, 11, and 10. So without the panoramic view and the dispensational view, we won't be able to sort these verses out. Is that true?
Yeah, I think this is where I think without understanding panoramic and dispensational, I guess we get confused with the symbols. Yes, but if you understand, because it doesn't make sense if you only have panoramic view, it doesn't make sense that the beast is dead, but you still have a head.
Yes.
Right? So you need to have a solution, because that's what the verses say. So you need to have a solution to that. And if you then understand that, just as in Daniel 2, that the beast and the woman are a panoramic view, so that it's just an illustration from the beginning, from Babylon all the way to the end of the world. You see a beast, you see a woman riding a beast. That's the description that is given. It's the same in the beginning, same in the middle, same at the end. But if you go to dispensational view, you see that is true, but not always. And that's what you get here in the dispensational view. And if you understand the dispensational view, I think then those verses start to make sense, these ones here.
Thank you.
Anybody else?
Yeah, Arijan, can you hear me?
Yeah, loud and clear.
Okay. Just a question on dispensational and panoramic view. Could you just explain how would we be able to identify whether something is dispensational versus dispensational or panoramic? Like, what are some rules or something that we could be able to help us to identify that this verse is dispensational, this verse is panoramic?
Yeah, good point. Good question. So I would say let's start with panoramic. So panoramic is sometimes a little confusing, a word that confuses a little bit, in a way that we have something in mind when we think of panoramic. Panoramic, we often think like we zoom out and we see the big picture, which is true to a certain sense, but not completely, because I think it was explained earlier in a presentation with Elder Parminder. When you go to your phone and you go to the camera settings, you also can make a panorama picture, right? You can click it, you can hold it, and then you do like this, and you click again, and then you have a picture of the whole scene. So that's a panoramic picture. But the problem is with this definition is that in this panoramic picture that you take, you see all the details. You can zoom in and you can see all the details of this whole of this whole view. You see the one view, and you can see it from the left all to the right in one picture. That's not panoramic how we treat it here in prophecy. So panoramic is how to say it. Panoramic means it is the same from begin to end. So if you see a verse that describes something or a history or something, and it's the same from the beginning to the end, you probably see a panoramic view. So
Can you give me an example?
yeah, so let's go to Revelation 17. I think there's several, but 17, the last verse, 17:18. So you see there, the woman which thou sawest is that great city which reigneth over the kings of the earth. So you see kings of the earth. If you go back into the chapter, there are 7 kings. So this verse basically says you have a woman, the prostitute, and it reigns over all the kings of the earth. That's panoramic view. So people go to this particular verse, and say like, what you said about the 6th kingdom can't be true, because the woman reigns over all the kings of the earth, so also the 6th kingdom. And I'm saying, no, this is panoramic view. Panoramic view it's the same from the beginning to the end. So if there's a woman here and kings, if there's a woman that rides kings, then there is a woman that rides kings here and here as well. It's the same here as here as here. That's panoramic view. So it doesn't change. There is no change in the symbology, whether you look at the situation at the beginning So the alpha or the omega. Doesn't matter if you look at the beginning of the history or at the end of the history, you see the same situation. You see the same symbology. So that's, for example, Revelation 17:18, but I think there is also verse I think verse 3 is I saw a woman sit upon a scarlet-colored beast full of names of blasphemy, having 7 heads and 10 horns. That's the general picture of Revelation 17. The woman riding the beast, having 7 heads and 10 horns. It's a picture that explains the whole situation. But at the same time, when you go to other verses, it's not, because the woman doesn't ride in, for example, the 6th kingdom. So, yeah, I think 17:18 is 17:3 are examples of panoramic view. It's giving you a picture which is true for all situations. Dispensational then we go to those verses that we looked at before. So then we go to 17:8, 10, and 11. They describe the same. They describe the same history. Exactly the same history. But now it says there's a woman, or no, I should say there's a beast here. There's no beast here. And there's a beast here. So now we're in dispensational mode, view. It's not all the same. So there were 5 were fallen, so we saw 5 beasts. And there's one time no beast, and one time a beast again. It's a description of the same history of when it talks about in verse 18, where it says in verse 18, I saw a woman riding all the kings of the earth. That's panoramic view. If you go to verse 8, 10, and 11, we go to dispensational view, and you see the same story, the same history, but it's not every time in history it's the same. So then we have dispensational view. I don't know if this helps, but this is. Does that help?
Thank you, Arijan.
All right. So there are no other questions, then I would suggest we close with prayer.
Okay.
Okay. Let's close with prayer. Dear Lord, we come before you to thank you for the opportunity we had to study together. It was lovely to go over these subjects together, to answer questions, to have some interaction with each other. It was good to hear voices from my friends from Fiji. Lord, I pray that this study may have contributed to a better understanding of who you are, how your kingdom operates, or at least how your kingdom should not operate, when we looked into the sixth and the seventh kingdom. We thank you, Lord, for the blessing we have received, for good technique, good connections. We could communicate clearly, although we are separated so many kilometers away from it. We're so many kilometers away, separated from each other in time zones. I'm thankful, Lord, for being part of this group today. I pray that you guide and direct them as they study as a group, as they come together frequently as a group. Bless them with your spirit and guidance. And I thank you for being part of this today. In Jesus' name, amen.